We have moved from the experimentation phase in AI to lifecycle management phase. And how do I know that? The FinOps Foundation, a trade association under Linux Foundation, just released their 2026 FinOps report. And it states that we have moved from 31% of organizations managing AI spend in 2024 to 98% today in 2026. There's also a nuance in that data that half of those organizations can't map that spend to a clear ROI. So what does that mean? Today, the challenge we are facing is not model performance, it is model volatility. And what do I mean by that? In a market where we have better models which are smashing the benchmarks, are releasing every 2 weeks or every month, an architecture that is tied to a single model provider or a single model is a technical debt and therefore a financial obligation. So how do we solve for this? I'm a solutions architect. Whiteboarding is my skill. Let's get into it. Most teams start here, pointing every app at the biggest, latest model in the market. It's easy, it's fast, but in 3 months, it's going to cost you. To solve for this, we will use an AI gateway. Instead of your applications calling a specific model directly, they hit a central model router or AI gateway. Now, there are already commercial providers like Cloudflare, Kong, Light LLM, etc. Now, the router is not just a pass-through, but it is also an economic decision engine. What I mean by that is that AI gateway analyzes the cost per token versus latency versus the complexity of the request coming in to route that request to one of the models that's connected to it. Now, if a new model has hit the market that has almost 90% of the results as the frontier models and it costs 1/10 to run that model, then the application should automatically switch to that model without having to change a single line of code. That also brings us to something called as tiered reasoning. So in tiered reasoning, how do we decide which model to use for what task? Generally, we say use smaller language models or purpose-built models for high-volume, low-complexity tasks. For example, you can use this for classification, sentiment detection, comprehension, etc. In the middle, you have slightly complex topics like retrieval augmented generation, summarizations from bigger documents. There you need to use distilled models. On the top, for tasks that involves a fair amount of reasoning or complex, creative synthesis, there you go for the frontier models. You cannot just swap models based on cost alone. Your entire CI/CD pipeline now has to incorporate a continuous evaluation job where before promoting a model to AI gateway, the model has to pass a set of benchmarks against your golden data set. Now, that ensures reliability. The second part is cost tagging. AI Gateway also helps with knowing which project costs what money, because it can not only calculate that unit price or cost per token, but it can also add metadata information like the application or the teams, project ID, cost center, etc. Now you're building a system where you can say project X became 20% more expensive because AI Gateway failed to a low latency, higher cost model to incorporate SLAs. So that's the kind of transparency that business leaders are demanding this year. This channel is a project to document the shifts in cloud and AI. If this kind of information is useful in your own practice, I invite you to join the channel by subscribing to it. As a solutions architect, I also have to give you the trade-offs. First is security. You're adding one more component into the architecture. That means data is now going to pass through another layer, and that requires rigorous governance. Second is complexity. Any seasoned architect would tell you that you're adding one more point of failure into the system. That needs to be taken care of. And the third is the evaluation stage itself. And that stage, when you're using LLM-as-a-Judge, costs tokens. But for that, the trade-off, I would say, is simple. It's a question, do you pay the evaluation tax now, or do you pay a lock-in tax for an overpriced model for the next 12 months? So To summarize, coming back to the point in the beginning that 98% of organizations are managing AI cost in their FinOps cycle, but nearly half of them don't know what is the return on investment on that. So in order to solve that problem, first you need to stop treating LLMs as unique assets and you need to start treating them as commodities. Think about building an abstraction layer. Think about that tiered reasoning of when to use which model, and also track and measure success. I'm curious to hear from you. If you're managing production workloads, are you prioritizing low latency direct integration, or do you have an abstraction layer like an AI gateway in between that kind of protects you from the model price wars? Let's discuss that in the comments. See you in the next one.